Well, the United States is a real leadership crisis. President Joe Biden, mentally and physically deteriorating. The man is so foggy-brained now that he couldn't even read a speech on a teleprompter last week without reading the instructions to repeat a line.
It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line.
Biden's decline is now so obvious that even the left-wing papers that campaign for him report on what they used to hide to make sure that, he beat Trump. The New York Times, for instance, now reports Biden's team has to schedule lots of rest for the 79-year-old. It says Biden now shuffles when he walks. Staff are scared he's going to trip over. They're scared when he opens his mouth, so they keep him away from press conferences. And Biden is not even halfway through his 4-year term. At this rate of decline, it's so fast, it's fair to ask, can he go the distance? And that puts the spotlight right on Kamala Harris. This is a really big leadership issue. And part of the reason for that is the idiotic identity politics that has made her the vice president. Now, it's true that every presidential candidate, when they're choosing their running mate, their vice president, has politics on their mind. For instance, if they're strong in the north of the country, they want a running mate who may be strong in the south. But in almost every case, they've at least chosen someone who could take over as president. John F. Kennedy thankfully chose the very wily Lyndon B. Johnson, who made a fine president when Kennedy was assassinated. Ronald Reagan had George Bush Sr., a former CIA director who later became president himself. But Biden, he picked Kamala Harris, a former district attorney from California, been in the Senate for just 3 years and done nothing of note. But the Democrat left, the media left, they said, well, look, Biden is a white male. And so he needs to run with a black woman to balance things, to balance the identities. And Biden didn't resist this nonsense. And the weird thing is that almost no one in the mainstream media bothered to ask, could Kamala Harris actually do the very one thing, the most important thing that you would need from a vice president to take over as president if the worst happens? And the answer is she almost certainly could not. You just listen to her, you realise that here's someone without a single profound insight. Here she is last week, trying to explain why the US Congress never got around to codifying abortion laws before the Supreme Court just tossed out Roe versus Wade.
I think that, to be very honest with you, I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. Certain issues are just settled.
Clearly we're not.
No, that's right. And that's why I do believe that we are living, sadly, in real unsettled times.
Honestly, she never says anything profound. It's always blah, blah, blah. In fact, Harris has also failed completely at the one big job that President Biden gave her, which is stop the illegal immigration over the US-Mexico border. But a year and a half later, a new record. Nearly 250,000 immigrants in just 1 month flooded over that border. Here is Texas Governor Greg Abbott on the weekend.
It was just 2 years ago, we had the lowest number of people coming across the border and apprehensions under President Trump. And then President Biden took over and eliminated all of the policies that President Trump put in place. And it has led to this unprecedented, overwhelming number of people coming across the border. There's a record number of people coming across the border from more than 150 different countries across the entire globe.
Joining me is Kosha Gada, an American tech entrepreneur, commentator, Sky News contributor. What doesn't she do? Kosha, thanks for coming on the show again. Love to see you every time. Look, how bad is Biden's decline?
It's not pretty, Andrew, and good to be with you. If you look at the latest polling, just as a barometer of it, the RCP, Real Clear Politics average poll of polls, he's at about 38% right now. That is well below the waterline of 45-50% that they say usually is a harbinger for a successful presidency and re-election. He's at 38%, looking at that average. That is lower than in recent times, previous presidents at this point in their presidencies. It is lower in every single segment, whether it's Democrats overall, women, Hispanics, the black vote, which the Democrat Party heavily relies on. They're at 56%, which is really, really low. It's one of their most loyal and reliable voting blocs. So it's not looking pretty. This sets up, three scenarios. Either he does run again, because it's not to say that if he's at this level of polling at this point in his presidency, theoretically it can't be turned around. I would remind your viewers that Bill Clinton was actually at a similar rate, and he went on to, win the re-election. I think most people would agree that Biden is not Bill Clinton, but theoretically it's possible. The second scenario is he finishes out his term but steps aside, and then other people from the Democrat bench will vie for the job. And then the third scenario, which is I think what you alluded to in your editorial, is that he doesn't even finish out this term, and potentially he steps aside after the midterm elections coming up in November, which paves the way for Kamala Harris to take that top job and then vie for election. And that sets up, a whole different scenario that we have seen in U.S. history, but, it makes a lot of people very nervous.
But Kosha Gada, I actually think this is a proof of one of these shocking weaknesses of identity politics, where people are judged not for what they can do, but how they seem. Now, she was picked primarily because she's black and a woman. Biden made that very clear. And now it turns out, look, how could she possibly be the alternative? She's no good.
Yes, if you look at who took on the job of the vice president throughout U.S. history, it does show sort of the changing character of the vice presidency, where at times it was a ministerial position or a symbolic position. At times it wielded a lot of influence on policy. And right now, I think just the moment that we're in, Andrew, in history, and all leadership, not just at the government, but in all sorts of venues, identity politics has become a real big factor, unfortunately. And Joe Biden has made no secret of the fact that that is one of his guiding principles, whether it's in his choice of his VP pick or the Supreme Court justice that he nominated, that is one of his factors. I think on the surface, if you look at, she was DA of California, the most populous state in the nation. She was a senator. Theoretically, you could argue that that is legitimate experience. Barack Obama was a senator for an equal amount of time. But again, she is no Barack Obama. And I think all those clips that you play and just the way we've seen her effectiveness or lack thereof on various issues does not lend a lot I confidence. So in that scenario that he steps down prematurely, she will take that seat.
Kosha Gada, I think it's a tragedy, American tragedy. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Appreciate it.